Have a pleasant morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Cedrick Vivero, your first reporter this morning. I'm from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. So for today's video, we're going to tackle about the 5 hypotheses of Krashen's theory of a second language acquisition. So let's not prolong this introduction. Let's be quick and jump to our main video. So before we move on to our main topic, let's have first a little recap from our previous lessons for us to be familiar to the words and term that is related to our topic. Well, the question is, what is a language acquisition? Well, it is the process wherein the children learn their native languages. It consists of abstracting structural information from the language they hear around them and internalizing this information for later use. Acquisition requires meaningful interaction in the target language. Let's say, for example, the natural communication, in which speakers are concerned not with the form of their utterances, but with the messages they are conveying and understanding. Come on! How about the second language acquisition? Well, the second language acquisition or sequential language acquisition is learning a second language after a first language is already established. Many times this happens when a child who speaks a language other than English goes to school for the first time. The 5 hypotheses of Krashen's theory of second language acquisition. Krashen's theory of second language acquisition consists of 5 main hypotheses. The first one, the acquisition learning hypothesis, and the second one, the monitor hypothesis, and the third one, the input hypothesis, the fourth one, the affective filter hypothesis, and the last one but not the least, the natural order hypothesis. But, by the way, who is Krashen? Who is Stephen Krashen rather? Stephen Krashen is graduated from University of Southern California, and he is an expert in the field of linguistics, specializing in theories of language acquisition and development. Much of his recent research has involved the study of non-English and bilingual language acquisition. Since 1980, he has published well over 100 books and articles and has been invited to deliver over 300 lectures at universities throughout the United States and Canada. Wow! What a great linguist! And now that we already know who is this professional linguist who proposed these 5 hypotheses about second language acquisition, let's now take a move on and tackle about the first hypothesis. The acquisition learning hypothesis distinction is the most fundamental of the 5 hypotheses in Krashen's theory and the most widely known among the linguists and the language teachers. According to Krashen, there are 2 independent systems of foreign language performance, and these are the acquired system and the learned system. Well, what is the acquired system? The acquired system or acquisition is a product of a subconscious process, very similar to the process children undergo when they acquire their first language. It requires meaningful interaction in the target language, a natural communication in which speakers are concentrated not in the form of their utterances but in the communicative act. For the further explanation, acquired system where language is acquired subconsciously. Happens when a child, let's say for example, who has been exposed to a language in a natural environment like home or school, that is start reproducing correct grammatical structures unconsciously. How about the learned system? The learned system or learning is the product of a formal instruction, and it comprises a conscious process which results in conscious knowledge about the language. Let's just say, for example, the knowledge of a grammar rules and the structures of sentences and paragraphs that are being taught in school or home. Let's say that a reductive approach in a teacher-centered setting produces learning, while an inductive approach in a student-centered setting leads to acquisition. But don't worry, because these rules may well have no actual impact on the language produced by the students or a learner. The monitor hypothesis explains the relationship between the acquisition and learning and define the influence of the latter on the former. The monitoring function is the practical result of the learned grammar. According to Krashen, the acquisition system is the utilized initiator, while the learning system performs the role of the monitor or the editor. The monitor acts in a planning, editing, and correcting function when these three specific conditions are met. These three specific conditions are: the second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal, or they focus on form or think about correctness, or they maybe know the rule. The monitor acts when these three specific conditions are met. The first one, the second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal. The second one, they focus on form or think about correctness. The third one, they maybe know the rule. It appears that the role of conscious learning is somewhat limited in second language performance. According to Krashen, the role of the monitor is minor, being used only to correct deviations from normal speech and to give speech a more polished appearance. Krashen also suggests that there is individual variation among language learners with regard to monitor use. He distinguishes those learners that use monitor all the time or the overusers. Those learners who have not learned or who prefer not to use their conscious knowledge, or they called underusers. And those learners that use the monitor appropriately, or the optimal users. An evaluation of the person's psychological profile can help to determine to what group they belong. Usually, extroverts are underusers, while introverts and perfectionists are overusers. Lack of self-confidence is frequently related to the overuse of the monitor. Let's just say, for example, when we minimize explicit grammar, when we keep the acquisition or learner distinction in mind and go light on explicit teaching and learning of grammar, especially with younger students. The input hypothesis is Krashen's attempt to explain how the learner acquires a second language or how second language acquisition takes place. The input hypothesis is only concerned with acquisition but not on learning. According to this hypothesis, The learner improves and progresses along the natural order when he or she receives a second language or the input that is one step beyond his or her current stage of linguistic competence. Let's say, for example, if there are more than 100 new words in a 1,000-word passage, the learner cannot understand it at all, let it alone, and he can benefit from it. Comprehensible input is formalized by Krashen as learner's current level of a second language plus next stage of a language acquisition. Did you get it? Well, if you can't understand the example of a comprehensible input, I'll explain it again. My example states that a learner progresses in their knowledge of the language when they comprehend language input that is slightly more advanced than their current level. Krashen called this level of input I+1, where I is the learner in their language and +1 is the next stage of language acquisition. Did you get it now? Yes, you got it. There are really lots of ways on how we will acquire and learn language. However, not all of the hypotheses are required on both language acquisition and learning. Just like the third hypothesis, which is the input hypothesis, it is just concerned with the acquisition, but not with the learning. All for today for my report. I hope you love the learnings and get any knowledge about my report. Make sure to watch the continuity of this report to Ma'am Jenny Pacheco Aguilar. She will be the one to continue the remaining two hypotheses of Krashen's theory of second language acquisition. So, goodbye and God bless.